"My car's fully paid off," Elena Rachel exclaimed. $12,000. No kidding. But I deserve it. In that moment, everything seemed to freeze. The fork in my hand hovered over my salad plate, the cherry tomatoes gleaming red as if freshly picked. I looked up straight at Grandma and said softly, almost in a whisper, but loud enough for everyone to hear, "Don't have a car, Grandma." Silence. Not the comfortable silence of a family gathering, but the kind of rigid silence where everyone decides at once not to look at anyone else. Then, as if on cue from a director, Rachel, my little sister, stepped out from the back door, her curly hair fluttering in the breeze, keys dangling in her hand sparkling. A red keychain with a small silver heart hung from the fob. Pretty, right? She grinned as if she'd just won the lottery. No one said a word. I turned back to Grandma. In her cloudy, aged eyes, I caught a fleeting flicker of panic. She glanced quickly to the left where Mom was slicing watermelon, then lowered her head to stare at the table. When I said I didn't have a car, the entire backyard seemed to tilt, but no one reacted as if they'd heard something wrong. Mom kept slicing the melon, each cut precise and even. Dad stared at his plastic plate as if it held the answer to what had just happened. Even Andrew, my cousin, the guy who always had a joke for every situation, just took a sip of his beer and looked away. "My name is Elena Martinez. I'm 32, a cybersecurity engineer living alone in San Diego. I'm not flashy, not the type to disrupt a family party, let alone be the center of attention. I'm used to being the quiet one, showing up a little late, bringing a salad. I know no one will eat much of helping Grandma clean up after the party and leaving early. I'm the kind of daughter people think of as settled, successful, someone who can help if needed. I don't often say no, because in my family that word seems to mean selfish. But that afternoon, in the midst of the sunny party with kids playing and laughing, those words hit me like a bucket of cold water to the chest. I wasn't angry right away. I just went still. 2 hours later, while everyone was in the living room watching TikTok on the TV, I gave them last Christmas. I opened my phone and checked my credit app. There it was, clear as day, a $12,000 loan status disbursed. My name was bolded at the top of the page. I didn't say anything. I didn't shake or cry. I just took a screenshot, saved it, and checked the signing date. When I looked up from the screen, Grandma was walking toward me from inside the house, carrying her old, faded brown leather purse. She didn't look at me, didn't say a word. She just unzipped it, pulled out a thick yellow folder, and placed it on the table in front of me. Still not a word. When I was little, I thought Grandma understood me best. She knew I didn't like crowds, knew I was scared of thunder, and always saved me a portion of pudding in the fridge. But now she looked at me as if I was doing something wrong by uncovering the truth. I didn't open the folder. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew what was inside. Car purchase documents, a loan contract, and probably my signature. A signature I hadn't written on any day this year. I glanced at Rachel. She was laughing with Andrew in the yard, holding a red plastic cup, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I was watching her. Not once did she look my way. A new car, a debt, a folder, a family that didn't think I'd find out. Or worse, thought I'd know and let it slide like I always had. That I'd smile, nod, say, "As long as you're happy," and quietly pay it off like I'd done before. I used to be that person. I used to believe that love meant enduring. That family meant unconditional loyalty, even if it meant swallowing tears. I thought silence was the way to keep the peace. But that afternoon in Grandma's backyard, where I used to play with Rachel on a homemade swing, I realized what I thought was peace was just systematic exploitation of my kindness. I looked at my family, the people I once believed would never hurt me, and understood they didn't love me any less. They just saw me as the one who carries the load, the reliable name on paper, more than a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter with feelings and limits. The sky darkened. Crickets began chirping in the grass. Rachel got into her new car and drove off. No goodbye, no glance. My parents saw the guests off. Mom gave me a quick look, then turned away when I met her eyes. No one mentioned what had happened. No one explained. No one apologized. I drove home in silence. On the passenger seat, the yellow folder sat quiet as an indictment that needed no jury. I didn't know what I'd do next. But for the first time in years, I knew I wouldn't pretend anymore. I parked in front of my house, picked up the folder, and felt the weight of its pages. As I unlocked the door, I knew that inside wasn't just a forged signature. It was the start of a truth hidden for too long. Only, I hadn't expected that it wasn't just a loan. It was an entire system built on my silence. I didn't open the folder that night. It sat on my kitchen table for 3 days, like a toxic object, like an invitation I wasn't ready to face. I passed by it every morning while making coffee, passed by it every evening while washing dishes, and each time the kitchen light hit the slightly crumpled yellow cover, I felt it watching me, waiting for me to touch it. I wasn't afraid of what was inside. I was afraid of what would awaken in me once I opened it. On the 3rd night, I couldn't sleep. 2 a.m., no cars on the street, no phone notifications. I got up, turned on the kitchen light, pulled a wooden chair close to the table, and opened the folder. The first page was the car purchase contract. My name in bold at the top. Below it, the Veen car color loan amount 12 Aussie or 437.20. Signing date 10 days before the BBQ. The financially responsible party signature column my signature, but not mine. I knew because I signed like an engineer, clean, precise, slightly slanted to the left. This one stiff, unnatural. It wasn't written. It was copied. I flipped to the next page. Car insurance registered with monthly deductions from a credit card. Also in my name. The next sheet was a printed dealership invoice with the Toyota logo at the top. Every detail was filled in. Every blank space contained my personal information, social security number, address, driver's license. I paused at a payment agreement with Elena M signed at the bottom. An old printout, but the signature was retraced in blue gel pen. And then I realized they'd reused my signature from a 2017 summer internship application, one I'd emailed to Rachel to help her edit her resume. Back then, I thought it was harmless. Now I understood. I closed my eyes for a few seconds, then opened my phone. Found the old email. Pulled up the exact attachment from that year. Opened it. There, it was the same signature. Copied. Pasted. Printed in color. That easy. The strange thing, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel rage. I didn't cry. I just slipped into a state of clarity sharper than ever. Like a thin layer of dust had coated my memories for years, and for the first time, I wiped it away. Now I saw everything. I saw the electric bill from last fall charged twice, and Mom said, "Probably just a glitch, don't worry about it." I remembered staying quiet, though it felt odd. I saw the Netflix account mine still logged in at my parents' house. I'd deleted the kids' profiles, yet weeks later Grandma reappeared with her favorite shows queued up. I thought I'd forgotten to change the password. I saw the $500 I sent for Rachel's kids' preschool 2 years ago. Just temporary, sis. I'll pay you back next month. No one mentioned it again, not once. I opened my banking app and for the first time filtered through all transactions from the past 3 years. My notes got shorter over time, Noah's tuition, helping Mom, paying for hosting, keeping the domain storage rental. I'm an engineer. I live by data. And now the data didn't lie, I'd become an invisible bank for my entire family. And every time I didn't speak up, I'd unknowingly signed a new contract, a contract of silence. In that cold kitchen at nearly 3 a.m., I didn't feel hurt. I felt awake. So awake that I started to smile faintly. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to write long emails. I just needed to do what I do best, dismantle the system I'd quietly built for them brick by brick. I pulled out a notebook, not to write a revenge plan, but a blueprint for boundaries. Page 1, digital infrastructure. Page 2, finance and legal. Page 3, new principles. I put the pen down. It felt like taking a deep breath after being underwater. As a kid, whenever I did something wrong, I'd blame myself for ages. Felt guilty if I made someone sad, even if I wasn't at fault. But now, I didn't feel that anymore. I didn't feel cruel. I felt like I was recalibrating the system. No one should be called cruel for resetting their own passwords. I opened my laptop and started step by step. Deleted the first Netflix profile, Family Fun, with Grandma's cartoon watch list. A slight pang hit me, but I clicked delete. No warning. No sound. Just a line fading away. Gone. Each action felt like peeling off old skin, not for revenge, but to reclaim my space. When I shut the laptop screen, the clock read 5:11 a.m. The sky was starting to lighten. I brewed coffee. The early coffee scent warmed my small apartment. The yellow folder was still on the table, but this time it didn't threaten me. It was just data evidence, not my identity. I opened my messaging app. A midnight text from Rachel. "Sis, don't do anything rash, okay? I know you're mad. But don't ruin everything. I thought you'd understand." I read it twice. Didn't reply. She still didn't get it. But she would sooner or later. I looked out the window. The city was still asleep, but I was awake, more awake than ever. On Friday morning, the first call came at 6:17 a.m., Mom's number. I didn't pick up. 2 minutes later, Dad called, then Rachel, then Uncle Mike. A string of messages across 3 apps kept my phone screen lit for 30 minutes straight. I put it on silent brewed coffee and sat at my computer. The sun hadn't fully risen, but I knew something had started to crack. 8 days earlier, I'd reset everything literally. Cut Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime. Locked the domain for Dad's company website. Disabled access to the server I'd set up for free for Uncle Mike's tax business. Changed the password for the family's security camera system. And the final step, I removed my name from my parents' mortgage. No warning. No threats. I just did what I should have done long ago, restored boundaries. I thought they'd be furious, and at first they were. Rachel texted me on Monday. "What the hell are you doing? Mom and Dad are freaking out." Another from Dad, Kurt. "Call me." Now. I didn't respond. I needed to know if without me as their pressure valve, they could handle the weight of the system they'd built together. By Friday, I had my answer. Mom sent a long text at 8 a.m. "Elena, Grandma was admitted to the hospital this morning. Sudden high blood pressure, the doctor said it's from stress. I had to take the day off work. Are you still holding the family's insurance? If not, I need to know so I can figure things out." I read it over and over. I knew Mom wasn't saying it outright. But "are you still holding the family's insurance" meant, "have you removed your name yet?" And then I realized they hadn't prepared for a scenario where I actually stepped away. Uncle Mike called 3 times that day. On the 4th, he left a voicemail. "Elena, my company server's down. The tax software won't log in. Is it because of the firewall you set up? If you're busy, just let me know. Clients are calling non-stop." I thought I'd feel a twinge of guilt. But I didn't. I just felt cold. Not because I stopped caring, but because for the first time I had to keep my distance to keep myself whole. Rachel texted me that evening. "Sis, I'm sorry if I did anything to hurt you. But can you not mess with Grandma's house cameras? Mom doesn't know how to reconnect them. And Grandma's scared. I know you're mad, but does it have to be this intense?" That message made me pause. Not because it swayed me, but because it was the first time she'd used sorry, even with a qualifier, if I did anything to hurt you. Still a sidestep from responsibility, but a small, fragile shift from the old cycle. I opened the cloud storage for the cameras. Grandma's house was fine. I'd revoked access from other devices, but kept one-way monitoring active because I worried about her. The system still ran, just no longer linked to my parents' app. I knew I could easily restore their access. 1 click. But if I did that without an honest conversation, everything would revert to how it was. Just like every time I stayed silent, they assumed I agreed. The next day, another email arrived. From the bank, the mortgage account for Rick and Maria Martinez requires reevaluation of credit terms. Without a KEO borrower, the interest rate may adjust within 30 days. I read it, then closed it. No further words. I didn't want my parents to lose their house. I didn't want Grandma hospitalized over stress. But I wasn't the cause. I was just withdrawing my part, because if a house only stands when I hold it up with a forged signature, it's not a home. It's a debt disguised as family. That Saturday evening, Mom sent a short text. We didn't expect it to hit this hard. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't expect to see a double-charged electric bill. I didn't expect to see my sister driving a new car. I didn't expect Grandma to hand me a folder with a forged signature. I didn't expect until I realized that naivety was deliberate. A way to avoid accountability. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, but because I knew they were starting to face the reality I'd lived in silently for years. That night I had a strange dream. I stood in the old house where Grandma and Grandpa used to live. I saw myself at 10 sitting at a desk doing math. Rachel was crying in the corner for breaking a glass. My parents said, "Let your sister handle it," and the little me got up, grabbed a rag, cleaned the floor, and picked up the shards. No one stopped me. No one thanked me. I woke up drenched in sweat. 3:12 a.m. I walked to the kitchen, poured water, and knew I wasn't that kid anymore. I wouldn't pick up shards unconditionally just because I knew how to handle the pain. The next morning I opened my computer and downloaded the full access logs for all my services. I saved them to a personal drive, meticulous, precise like I do with project backups. Then I created a new folder family, new boundaries. Inside I saved one file conversation script. It had 3 points. 1. No discussing emotions if they still deny the truth. 2. Only meet with a clear, unconditional apology. 3. Keep distance even if I forgive because trust must be rebuilt, not given freely. I knew this wasn't over. I knew they wouldn't give up easily. They might blame me. They might escalate. But I also knew I'd started something they didn't expect most, a truth that couldn't be hidden by family ties. And now they were no longer okay. I got an invitation to meet on a Tuesday afternoon when sunlight poured through my apartment's glass doors, casting a quiet golden streak across the wooden floor. The message was from Mom, simple, no frills. If you're ready, I'd like us all to meet. No blame, just to talk honestly. This Saturday, the coffee shop on Jefferson, 10 a.m. I read it 3 times. No sorry, no misunderstanding, but also no accusations or complaints. And that was enough, I replied. Okay. That Saturday, the weather wasn't too hot, but sunny enough to make sweat bead lightly on my neck as I walked into the small coffee shop with red brick walls and hanging ivy by the windows. The scent of fresh espresso mingled with the sound of typing and soft whispers from regular patrons. They were already there. Mom in a faded light blue shirt. Dad with his usual averted gaze. Rachel holding a glass of water, her eyes unsteady. The chair next to them was empty. No Grandma. I pulled up a chair and sat down. No one spoke for the first 10 seconds. I had no intention of breaking the silence, but Mom did. Grandma isn't well. Her blood pressure's still unstable. But she sent you this. She pulled out a letter, pale yellow paper, blue ink, slightly trembling. No envelope, just a sheet folded carefully. I opened it. Inside were handwritten words I recognized instantly Grandma's. Dear Elena, I know you don't want to hear from me right now, and I don't blame you. I was wrong. I knew about the car papers, but I thought it would keep the family together. I thought it was just one time and you'd understand like always. But you understood differently, and I can't ignore that. I'm sorry for not protecting you the way you've protected this family for so long. Just because you don't complain doesn't mean you don't need shielding. You're strong, and that's why they leaned on you, but I should have taught them to lean on each other, not exploit one person. Love, Grandma. I read to the end and felt like I was breathing again after forgetting how for too long. Not because I needed a perfect apology, but because this was the first time someone in my family acknowledged what I'd been through. Clearly no blame, no excuses. I folded the letter and placed it gently on the table. Mom looked at me. Dad stayed silent, but his hand gripped his coffee mug so tightly his knuckles turned white. Rachel spoke first. Sis, I knew the car was in your name. I knew from the start. But I thought you wouldn't do anything. Her words rang like a bell. Not a full apology, but an admission. I looked at Rachel. You thought I wouldn't do anything. Why? She bit her lip. Mom cut in. Because you're always the one who takes it. Smart. Quiet. Never making a scene. I thought you were fine. I thought if anyone in this family could handle it, it was you. And I was wrong. Truly wrong. I turned to Mom. Something in her eyes reminded me of myself. Her eyes were wet, but not the manipulative crying kind. She sat upright as if this was a lesson she was forcing herself to face. You're too good, Mom continued. So good that I forgot you need protecting, too. I stayed silent for a few seconds. My throat felt tight, but I didn't want it to spill into tears. Not because I'm strong, but because I'd learned to stay steady after storms. I don't need protecting, I said softly but firmly. I need respect. I need to not be seen as a shared resource for everyone to dip into. Dad stayed quiet, but he nodded slightly, the smallest agreement he could give. I pulled out an envelope. Inside was a sheet titled Boundary Principles, clear version. I wrote this, I said, not to set rules, but so we have something real concrete, so no one has to guess each other's intentions and get hurt. I slid the paper toward them. All 3 read it. Mom nodded first. Rachel hesitated but didn't object. Dad didn't sign, but he slid the paper closer to Mom, a small gesture. But in our family, it was his way of saying, I get it. I stood to leave. Before I walked away, I looked at Rachel. She said softly, Will you forgive me? I replied slowly, Yes. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to how things were. It means I'm not bitter anymore, but there's no room for the old ways to repeat. She nodded, her eyes reddening. I knew for the first time my words didn't slide past her ears like before. She heard me. Whether she'd change time would tell. I left the coffee shop in the humid summer noon. The sun was so bright I had to shield my eyes. But for the first time in weeks, my heart didn't blur like the scenery before me. The first leaf fell on my balcony on a Tuesday morning in early August. Small, red-orange, curled at the stem as if it had twisted to break free. I looked at it in silence, thinking the season is shedding its skin. And so am I. No one in the family called to ask about Netflix or why Amazon stopped delivering free to them. They'd started living in their own system without my accounts quietly holding it up. I didn't feel smug. I just felt light. Light like opening all the windows after an early fall rain, needing nothing but quiet. I went to Mom's house one Friday afternoon bringing the loan documents. She wanted to restructure the mortgage I'd once co-signed. This time, she'd do it in her own name. "Help me read through these sections," she said, her hands trembling slightly as she flipped the papers. I sat beside her, pointing out each line. Fixed interest rate, early repayment terms, service fees, loan insurance. Mom took notes in pencil line by line. No asking, "Can you co-sign again like before?" No avoidance, no sidestepping. Just help me understand. That's all. After signing, Mom smiled a real light smile, like someone who'd finally buttoned their own coat after years of letting others do it. "Thank you," she said. Today I feel like I grew up a little. I didn't reply right away. I looked at her, the woman I'd resented, forgiven, pitied. Today I saw a mother learning the basics again, taking responsibility for her own life. "You did well," I said. A week later, Rachel sent me an Excel sheet. Unprompted. Voluntary. Title, September, personal budget. "Not sure if I did it right," she texted, "but I want to try. I don't want to depend on anyone anymore." I opened the file. The numbers were messy. But something about how Rachel listed each item: school debt pay, Elena $200 a month, sparked a small light in what used to be a collapsed cave. I sent back "doesn't need to be perfect, just real." I still didn't share any accounts. No Netflix, no Prime, no Drive. But I still called Grandma every Sunday. Still sent birthday cards to my nephew. Still kept my promise to visit Mom if invited properly. I didn't cut ties. I adjusted the distance. One afternoon, my cousin Ellie called. She's the quiet one, rarely involved. But this time she whispered over the phone. "Everyone's having to learn from scratch now. But you're not their shield anymore. And they all know it." I asked, "Do they resent me?" She paused for a few seconds, then said, "Some do, but they also respect you." I smiled faintly. Not because their respect made me happy, but because finally they saw me as a person, not a tool. I moved the financial exploitation folder to my personal safe, not because I feared lawsuits or threats, but because it was a paper memory of an old version of me, the one who thought enduring was love. I no longer looked at that folder with resentment. I saw it like an old photo of myself, childish, naive, but not hated. I'd been sincere, just in the wrong way. I didn't regret it. I just didn't want to repeat it. Fall crept in gently like a familiar guest who doesn't need to knock. The sky turned pale blue. The first breezes slipped through the window cracks. I bought a scented candle cinnamon and sandalwood and placed it on my desk. That evening, after finishing a system report for a major client, I shut my computer, poured a glass of red wine, and sat on the sofa. No phone notifications, no urgent emails, no one asking, "Do you have a spare credit card?" or "Can you co-sign for me?" Just me, the candlelight, and soft piano music. I didn't feel like I was missing anyone. I didn't feel isolated either. I felt enough. There was a quote I'd written on my office whiteboard years ago, but had forgotten: "You are not responsible for the weight others refuse to carry." Now I understood it more deeply than ever. Not because I'd abandoned anyone, but because I'd stopped choking myself to keep them from falling. And only when I let go did they learn to stand on their own. I stood, pulled back the curtains, and watched the city light up. The glow from the balcony spilled across the floor. A shadow stretched long mine, but no longer weary. For the first time in years, I didn't feel I owed anyone anything. Not because I'd taken back, but because I'd chosen to stop giving what wasn't valued. I went to the kitchen, opened the safe, and took out the yellow folder. Flipped to the first page. Looked at the forged signature. I picked up a pen and wrote in the bottom corner, "Understood." Done. I put it back. Locked the safe. Not to seal away the past, but because I no longer needed it in front of me. I returned to my desk, opened my notebook, and wrote one line: "Forgiveness is your own freedom." And this time, I signed my own name. The first photo I saw was Rachel's face. Red eyes mascara streaked around the corners, soft light from a window casting a dreamy haze of curated sadness. Below it, a caption. It hurts so much when the person you trust most is the one who breaks your family. But maybe that's what had to happen to see who's really left. I stopped at the last line, not clicking. See more. My heart didn't clench or sting. Just a brief emptiness, like watching someone fall into a pit and knowing instead of reaching out that they need to climb up themselves this time. The post had over 400 likes, 60 comments, lots of sympathy support. Some relatives chimed in. Family is for forgiveness, not punishment. What happened to love? I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I didn't jump in to explain. But I knew silence was no longer enough. I opened my laptop and logged into LinkedIn, a professional platform where I'm known not as Rachel's sister or the quiet daughter, but as Elena Martinez Network Infrastructure Director Manager of over 300 national projects. I opened the Family New Boundaries folder. Inside, I'd saved every screenshot the car loan contract in my name, the forged signature transaction confirmation texts, a PDF of the full payment history bank notifications, emails from Mom, Dad, Rachel, some pleading, some snarky. I didn't write like I was venting. I wrote like I do technical reports, clear points, specific timelines, attached evidence. The post started with a simple line. When family crosses boundaries, you don't have to stay silent to keep the peace. This is a story of financial exploitation, identity fraud, and a woman choosing to reclaim herself. I didn't name names, but those who knew would understand. Those who didn't would see this story as bigger than one relationship, a wake-up call for those living in something they couldn't name. I hit post, no trembling, no hesitation. Within 24 hours, the post had over 12,000 views. By day 3, it passed 30,000. Hundreds of messages flooded my inbox, not just empathy, but stories. I co-signed for my sister, and she still hasn't paid. My dad used my social security number for a personal loan. They called it family, but it was dependency. I read each one, nodding countless times. In their eyes, I wasn't just Elena from the story. I was a mirror reflecting what they'd seen, feared, or denied. A message from a 58-year-old woman named Lisa read, "Thank you. I stayed silent for 30 years. Your post made me want to file to remove my name from my husband's debt." I looked out the window. The maple tree in front of my house was shedding leaves, bare branches casting shadows on the glass. I didn't feel cold. I felt clear. And that was a feeling I'd missed for too long. 3 days later, Rachel sent a single text, "You won." I lost everything. I stared at the words, my heart unmoved, as it once might have been. Something in me had closed. Not a heavy door, but a gap sewn shut. I thought I didn't win. I just stopped. News of Grandma's passing came on a late November morning. Mom called. For the first time in months, her voice wasn't stiff or guarded. She went peacefully, in her sleep. No pain. I stayed silent. Mom added, "She left you something." Said it had to be given in person. A week after the funeral, I went to Grandma's old house. It no longer smelled of lavender. Her pillows were neat, her blanket folded as if she'd just stepped out for a walk. Mom handed me a leather-bound notebook. I recognized it instantly, Grandma's old journal. Worn, cover-cracked spine. I took it home. Waited until evening to open it. The last page was written in purple ink, her handwriting shaky, but careful, Elena. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I've lived long enough to see silence become a disease, and you were the first in this family to cut that cord. They may not understand yet. They may resent you, but they'll learn. Thank you for teaching this family 2 words. Respect. I love you. Always. I closed the journal, placed my hand on the cover. No tears. Just a gentle gratitude spreading in my chest. Gratitude that Grandma, though flawed, chose truth at the end of her road. She didn't ask me to come back. Didn't beg for reconciliation. She just confirmed what I needed most. I wasn't wrong to set boundaries for myself. That evening, I lit a candle by the window and wrote in my notebook, I didn't break the family. I just refused to be the cement patching cracks they refused to fix. I am Elena Martinez. I used to be the one who didn't make waves, who gave in, who carried the weight to keep things looking smooth. Now I'm the woman who owns her name, takes responsibility for herself, and no longer apologizes for it. Families don't break because of truth. They break because pretending too long can no longer hide the cracks. I don't regret. I don't hate. I just move forward with a name I've spent a lifetime protecting. My story isn't a verdict on family. but a reminder of boundaries, respect, and self-worth in relationships that seem unconditional. I've learned that family shouldn't be a place where people assume they can hurt each other, and kindness doesn't mean enduring forever. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing to let go of the burden of resentment to move on. I didn't seek revenge, I freed myself. And in that journey I found my voice, my value, and the name I'd once let others use freely. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever stayed silent, been exploited, or thought you had to sacrifice to keep things okay, I hope you know you have the right to say enough. Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow for more real, deep, and human stories. We deserve to be heard.